I don't know where I was. Why am I so bad at this?
You have a
I do.
What are you
I
reading?
got off script.
Does it say, what am I doing here? Hi, and welcome to another episode of Dungeons and Degrees. My name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
And today we have a special guest. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Eddie. I go by ATinyHorse on Twitch. Very happy to be here.
ATinyHorse. All right, so you do RP on Twitch?
I do. Yeah. All of my RP has been through Twitch, honestly. All in the digital space, so all video games of some kind.
What is your top one to RP on?
Lately, it has really been, and probably for the past few years, has been Grand Theft Auto 5.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible that a game that old is has such a big community behind it, especially a roleplay community. But that's been a major one just because of the way the software is and how probably against Rockstar's wishes, honestly, the company that makes its wishes, it is moddable. Mm-hmm. And people have kind of found ways to really make it very immersive and interesting and really feel like an alive city that you can have a character that's truly your own, just kind of live in and exist in. And so that's been my main one. I've also done a bit of Red Dead Redemption, still kind of sticking with the Rockstar, under the Rockstar umbrella. Red Dead Redemption 2 when I want some more cowboy vibes. And so those are my main ones.
That's wild. Okay, so did you RP like before you streamed it? Did you just get into the RP because of streaming? How did you get into that sphere?
It's kind of a weird story, honestly. I was originally when I played video games, I was very into the competitive scene. And I found it incredibly stressful because I wasn't very good at any games when it came to trying to be. But that's what I think a lot of us like grow up and we understand video games to be. Even when they were at home consoles and you invite your friends over and, trying to beat your friend or whatever it might be. And so I played a lot of shooters, which I wasn't very good at. And then I landed in World of Warcraft, where I was a diehard PvPer.
What did you play? What did you play?
So I was a rogue for the longest time.
Let me tell you. I rated. I was like number 2 DPS on my server. It was not a very big server.
Wow.
I played a fucking... I refused to play anything other than an ice mage because my hair was fucking blue. I made everyone crazy because I was like, I'm not changing shit. Fuck you. I'm ice all the way.
Yep.
I don't know.
On the reboot, when they rebooted World of Warcraft, I played a mage, and I liked it so much more. Rogue was too up close and personal.
It was. I have no idea, but I played. So I played on a MacBook. I don't know if this is just everyone's gonna be like, "What the fuck, Alex?" I played on a MacBook. I did not have a mouse. I played on my trackpad, and I didn't have any macros. Gosh. I just was really good at some point, which is probably why I have carpal tunnel in my hands now.
That's incredible. No macros and the trackpad. You were like swinging the heavy bat.
It's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
Yep. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so through playing online games like that, I learned what RP was. For anybody who knows World of Warcraft, especially back in the day, RPers and PvPers are like mortal enemies. Especially when the battlegrounds were around and you'd be against an RP server when they started to do the server versus server, and they'd be trying to role play the PvP while the PvPers are just as hard as they can trying to win. And so I always had kind of seen it like that. And then I started branching out to other games, and as I was getting older and playing other things, I started to play it. My RP journey truly started with Friday the 13th, the game, as random as that is.
Nice.
That game came out, and the day one, I downloaded it. I was so excited to play it, and I was obsessed with it. I played it way too many hours a day. I was in school at the time, too, so it was terrible that I was playing it so much. But I played it constantly, and somebody messaged me after a game and said, "Hey, I'm a streamer. I love what you do with the role playing in the game. you should stream. Or he kind of said, like, I love what you do in the game. You should try streaming. And I thought, well, I'm spending so many hours playing. I guess I could dedicate some time to streaming. And so I started it up. And what I was noticing in my chat was a lot of people were saying they thought it was so funny that I role play. And I was sort of like, am I role playing? Is that what I'm doing? Because I would just play my character, whoever my character was, that because you kind of like could choose, or you get randomly selected to be Jason at times. I would just pretend I'm that person and I would play it out like I was. So I'd act terrified, and then I'd plead Jason not to kill me, and all this ridiculous kind of stuff. That game, I thought, did such a service to fans, letting Jason and the survivors talk to each other. So it was just area chat. And so if you were near someone, you could talk to them. If you weren't, they wouldn't be able to hear you, or they'd hear you if you ran off into the distance, kind of get softer until they couldn't hear you anymore. And it just made for really funny moments. And I loved it. I had so much fun with the game. And then I was like, if what I'm doing is role play, this is the most fun I've ever had with a video game, because I'm not competitive at all. I don't care if I get beat. I just am laughing and enjoying my time. And so, in fact, a lot of times with the role playing as the characters, I would kind of put myself at a handicap to lose, just because I was doing something silly or something like that I thought would be funny with the character. And so I started to do a little bit of research, and I found a few communities that were really serious about role play. And I started to consider, like, is this kind of a path I want to go down? It's so much fun, and I'm certainly better at it than I am at shooters and competitive games. and I that's when I started to really find, like, specifically the Grand Theft Auto community, because Red Dead is sort of a blossoming RP community. It's just starting out, and it's really starting to gain roots. But Rockstar doesn't love people modding their game at all, especially doesn't love them playing on private servers, because it means less money for them. They like to sell things for the online mode. So Red Dead was a tough shell to crack for modders to actually get in there and do things. And what's been found is Rockstar won't stop anyone from doing it, because, like with Grand Theft Auto, it keeps people buying a game that's almost 15 years old now, if not 15 years old. I actually heard once that GTA 5 is the highest selling piece of media ever, including movies, TV, video games, anything. It has sold more copies over its lifespan than anything. So I think they've decided to just say, if it's isn't broke, we just won't fix it, and we'll let people keep buying it.
Right.
And that's when I started to kind of dabble into the Grand Theft Auto world, and really started to try to RP in there and kind of sink my teeth in a little bit. It was a shell shock at first to see what real RP is compared to just being silly in a game. Because you're confronted with many different things, totally different than what I was expecting to find. But I fell in love with it.
Nice. So this jump from, like, competitive to RP just for fun, and then RP like full on servers, not just like being silly. You said there's like some sort of culture shock. So when did you feel like you were like finally like, okay, I finally get this, I know what I want to do?
Yeah, it's so strange, because I think roleplay is such an interesting journey. It's almost like you're always finding those moments where you're like, I think I get it, and then it's like, oh, I don't get it.
Like life, like a life.
Literally, it really does feel that way sometimes. Or you'll come across somebody who's role playing that you're like, wow, I never thought to kind of apply it in that way, or I never thought to do that thing. I remember my character, who I actually still play, my kind of original guy, was I'm from New York, and semi-naturally have a thick New York accent, although I can suppress it because I was going to school for therapy and stuff, and they kind of like went over it a little bit in New York, that if you go anywhere else, you should try to tone it down a bit. And I'm from Staten Island, so a particularly aggressive New York accent. And so that character's fun because I just let it fly. Right. So he'll be like, "Oh, I'm walking over here. What are we doing?" Like he's very like, he can be everything I grew up around. And he's sort of a parody of Staten Island where I grew up. Very much thinks he's connected to the mafia because he watched mob movies growing up, like no real understanding of what any of that is or what the criminal world actually is. And so the idea is he kind of gets himself in over his head. And I thought it would be funny to join the Russian mafia, role playing that he doesn't know the difference. He just thinks the mafia is the mafia. And so that was kind of the direction I went with him. And seeing people do drama RP was when I first felt my first kind of shock. Because I had known, like I said, RP to get very funny and very kind of jovial. And then to see people, they call it permaing their character, which is having their character pass away and they delete their character. I was like, wow, this is like emotional. And I was like, this is not at all what I'm used to doing, kind of silly stuff. And that's when I started to, I think, really think about RP differently. And when I started to really understand that we're all sort of actors in our own separate spaces coming together digitally to try to make an impromptu story. And that really was, I think, when I felt I was starting to get it. That we really are kind of connected through this story we're weaving just on the spot, on the fly. And I was just floored with what I was seeing, because then I became so interested in, well, now I have to watch this person's stream or watch this over here, because I'm so interested in what that character's story is. Or I'll bump into a character and I'll be like, I have to know more. How did they develop? How did they start? And it was amazing. I really was very into it very quickly, but very much still learning always.
Absolutely. And I think that's so strange, because I was just, when you were talking about people choosing to like basically kill off their characters and how different that feels in playing D&D, that most of the time when we talk about death in tabletop RPGs, it's accidental. It's not necessarily I'm making the choice to off my character. It's more like, oh, well, the dice rolls happen to play against what I was doing. And I don't know which one is even better or worse. And I know that there are tabletop deaths that are quote unquote on purpose, that they play a story role. But I think, I don't know, that feels like, is it true that like it feels different? I don't know. Does it feel different in the RP world? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I get what we're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting point, because I think it does. It kind of is on a razor's edge there a bit, because accidental, there's sort of a fate element, and almost like a mini bit of realism to the fact that things can just go wrong, and it's sort of a fact of life in a sort of scary, beautiful, like brutal way. But with the planned RP deaths, it can be such an interesting thing. Sometimes they do happen sporadically where someone will decide. I know some RPers who play very, very strict. They kind of make their own rule set for their RP, and they feel if my character would not have survived whatever just happened to them, that's it. I'll let go, and I'll just call this a perma. I recently had a friend who played his character for 5 years and decided he was going to role play his character's death, and it was emotional. I was shocked. I was in tears. And the nature of something like a Grand Theft Auto is you go down to the hospital, and you had the doctors are all people. So the doctors do their surgery stuff, and they do this and they do that, and they really like try to rub right up against that realism that I think can be very cinematic in a way. But I think they do feel so different to me, because in roleplay on Grand Theft Auto and things like that, it's always the character who plays them, the player's choice, whether their character has actually died from whatever happened. But sometimes people do it very unexpectedly. But they are always the puppet master behind the scenes. It's always their call. And that's so different than kind of what you're describing, Alex, because that is I don't know how that would be. I'm trying to like put myself in those shoes. On a dice roll, my character would go. I'd be like, oh man.
You said there's like drama. Is perma a subset of the drama RP?
It can be. So my character has over time sort of like learned his way, and he actually reached a point where he became one of the prevalent leaders in an Italian mafia, which took years to get to this point where he had the right people show him things and teach him, and he started to develop as a person and start to understand a little more what was going on around him. And sometimes you war with other groups. So there's people who will roleplay South Side street gangs. There are people who will roleplay the Bratva Russian mob and the Italian mob, and then civilians, which are a huge part of it. A lot of times in war and things like that, a perma will really pull some incredible role play out of everything, because then you have to consider what is everyone's reactions. This is a storyline that will never end. The server will be up and it's just going to continue. So how does it affect the people around them? And everyone's going to have such a different reaction to a character's death. An enemy of that group may celebrate it, while the members of that group are going to seriously mourn it, maybe look for revenge, maybe call it quits on the criminal life and decide, wow, this is very real. I could die here. I should walk away. And it becomes so interesting that that friend who had that 5-year character, it was in the midst of a war that he passed, and it was his character passed, and it was such a gut punch to a lot of the family, but to that other side, it was a major victory and a proof that they were making this huge progress in. He was the Don of the mafia, so it was to them this major win. And I think it really, really emphasized the drama. Just yesterday, I saw someone perma their character in a totally different way, really leaning away from drama and just being, they were at a pizza shop and got too close to the oven and caught fire and decided they would perma that way and made a whole comedy routine out of it. So it was such a different vibe. I mean, one, we're all crying in a hospital. And then in the other, it's just sort of this random chaos that happens. A pizza worker just reaching too far into the brick oven and falling in, kind of thing. Yeah.
That has some real Sims vibes to it, though.
Totally.
It's the dichotomy of man, you know?
Yeah.
War and pizza ovens.
Yes, absolutely.
That was the original title. It was not War and Peace. It was War and Pizza Ovens.
Yep, I think you're right. And so it's interesting to see how different role players pull different things with the same set of tools.
Nice. How do you get more people into a server, or is it just kind of flux where some people come in for a couple days and leave, or is there for you or the server you're on or the multiple servers? I don't know. How does that kind of work out?
That's a great question, actually, Adrian. The servers are a huge part of it, which I really didn't understand when I first joined. Every server will not only have their own kind of vibe, they have their own owners and staff team and things like that. They also use their own set of mods. So they'll have a dev team, much like a video game that's regularly updated, and they are all very unique. They all have a lot of unique qualities to them. They handle gangs differently. They handle jobs and civilian life differently. The police force, all played by real people. They handle them very, very differently. Some things may be available on one server that simply don't exist on another. And I think the server is a huge part, finding the server that's right for you. Some will be semi-serious. Some will be very, very serious. You can get banned for not following roleplay rules. So if you go in and you start saying, hey, message me on Discord and we should play Valorant later, things like that, they're gonna get on top of you for those kind of things.
Freaking my immersion.
Exactly. And so I started off actually on a public server, which just means anyone can join. They can hop right into the server, start playing right away. They just ask that you read the rules and you're good. You can jump right in and start playing. And on those servers, we saw a lot of people play for a day or two and then leave. So you'd meet new people all the time. You were never, you had the core people that were playing regularly. But if you went to the grocery store to get some food or a drink or something like that, you'd run into all sorts of characters that were either just made or kind of new to RP. And I had played there for a while. My character owned like a little restaurant actually on that server called Mamma Mia's Pizzeria.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
And it was great because I got to interact with a lot of people. Some people who were new, some people who were veterans and very clear veterans to roleplay. Then you kind of move up to the whitelist servers. Those servers require an application, a lot like a job application. They want to know your roleplay experience. They want to know what kind of characters you like to make. They want to question you on the rules and have you explain your understanding of them. For streamers, concern is always metagaming. So that always comes up, which is, people telling you information your character would not have naturally obtained, which can happen. People in chat really like to tell you stuff when they want you to do it. So, you're at war with another crew. They're telling you where they are in chat and things like that. And so they ask that streamers kind of like keep that wrangled in. The whitelist servers are kind of go like that. There are also whitelist servers plus an interview. So after they approve your application, they want to bring you in for an interview, speak to you, check that your mic is good, and then just kind of talk with you a little bit about your understanding of roleplay. And you notice the quality of roleplay really go up as you go from one to the other. And then there are the sort of mecha servers, just the servers that are top of the top. Right now on Grand Theft Auto, that server is NoPixel, which is sort of like the pinnacle. Very, very, very hard to get into. In the 5 years I've known of the servers, their applications have never been open. You actually usually have to pay a little bit of money to get onto there.
Some palms.
Yeah. That's usually what you have to do. And that's where kind of the biggest, basically, if you name any Twitch streamer and they've done GTA roleplay even for a moment just to check it out, that's the server they play on. It's a well-protected server so that people don't grab IPs or do anything malicious. And the roleplay standard is about as high as it gets there. For like a Red Dead Redemption 2, things are just starting out, so they follow that same kind of formula. But one of the servers that's really emerging as the kind of peak there is a server called Wild RP. And they do some really fun, interesting stuff that really is impressive. Things like making your own tonics out of herbs you can find all over the world. And then you can make labels, slap it on, and people will see those labels in game. And you can have your own tonic shop. You can own a bar. You could do all these incredible things there.
That's so cool. Do you think that for newer RPers, would it be easier to go into something like the GTA kind of servers or the Red Dead?
I think Red Dead is having a really interesting boom right now. It's slowly starting up in a way that I think is really healthy. A lot of people who are really interested in roleplay and actually interfacing with other people are getting into there. Grand Theft Auto is really great too, but I think what can be a little dizzying for new players is how many Grand Theft Auto servers there are. There truly are thousands, just thousands of thousands, and it's hard to find the right one. They really can be. It can be very tricky. They are kind of well known for some of them being very toxic, and you'll see some of the stuff in there that is not great. And so it's all about finding the right one, and doing research is sometimes very tricky because the servers do advertise, and a lot of times the way they will advertise is pay a streamer or staff a streamer or a YouTuber who will put out a review of the server, not disclosing that they are sort of sponsored by this server to say really nice things about it. And so sometimes things that feel like research are actually sort of kind of paid advertising and things like that. Red Dead is a little bit less that way because it's kind of just starting out and it's a little less known right now, but it is getting much bigger. With that said, though, there's a lot of options in both. And so starting on a public server and things like that is really a great way to do it. That's how I started, and that's how I really learned. And I felt it gave me a really good understanding of what I was actually doing with roleplay. Before jumping into one of the whitelists and getting yourself banned, and that can be really a frustrating experience, especially when you're breaking rules you don't understand right away.
How many characters do you have?
So I have a couple. My Grand Theft Auto, I really main this one character. I find that I have trouble making time for other characters because I really like the one I have and I really love developing his storyline. And he's sort of emerging on a new server. I'm sort of getting him acclimated into the new server that I'm on, which is the NoPixel server. And so that's been sort of a journey because it's so different than anywhere else I'd been. And then I have on Red Dead 2 characters. One is just off the boat from Italy, and he has a thick Italian accent, and he's very fancy. And then a very gruff, kind of off the train from all the way east, dock worker who's from New York and is sort of annoyed by everything Western, the dust, the mud, and no paved streets, and he's just aggravated.
The boys.
Yep, exactly. Not used to the Southern accent, none of that.
I'm sensing a trend with you, Eddie. I don't know what it is. There's something.
Yeah.
You're playing into your strengths.
Yes,
as a man from Staten Island.
It's true. It's so true.
So when you go into any of these games, like, how does the storyline progress? Is it every time I log in, it's the next day? Is it like a couple days after? How do you keep up with the storyline itself? Is it like a server storyline, or is it like character individual storyline? I guess I'll narrow my question down.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. They do have a day-night cycle. And so over the course of 24 hours, you might get about a month's worth of day-night cycle. And so a lot of times some servers will kind of ignore that day-night cycle. Not ignore it in-game, but not refer to them as months and things like that. They'll refer to real-life days as the days. So if somebody's saying, I'll see you tomorrow, they don't mean in 2 hours when it's technically tomorrow in the game. But the storylines are really kind of more to the individual. And then what becomes interesting is it all kind of weaves into a larger fabric that becomes the server storyline. I've seen events kind of shape and change servers in really fantastic ways. Things that people do and things that they kind of achieve in game, sort of really changing the flow of the whole server. And so it can kind of be an interesting play of both. And no matter how kind of insignificant the character might seem, a comedy character who's just doing silly things versus large groups of characters who are all having their own unique story together, they all play this interesting part to the overall server. And that's something I've really loved about these long-term servers. I know NoPixel has been around for 7 or 8 years, I believe. And over that time has never shut down. And so that same storyline from 8 years ago is sort of continuing through the characters who are around now and have sort of shaped and changed things in interesting ways. So it's a little bit of both for the most part.
I need the like diary log of like the server, I think.
Yes.
I hope somebody's writing it down and just making it into a whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's what becomes so appealing to content creators about those servers, is because it's so funny, but the log almost exists through all these different streams. And I remember when I first found I know I keep using NoPixel as an example. That's kind of the one that I know the best. First found a character that I loved watching and just was so into it. And I loved these characters he was meeting. They were just so funny and interesting. And I used to think to myself, I wish he'd run into them more because I really love seeing them. And then it dawned on me, I can watch their whole storyline from beginning to end. It's there online somewhere. And that became so interesting. I think that's why there's such a viewership for it, is because there is sort of this desire to read that diary of the whole server. And you can kind of do that by jumping from stream to stream to stream, watching VODs and YouTube videos and things like that, and really piecing together what is happening in the larger picture. Or you can zoom right into the microscope and watch one story. And I have always referred to it as kind of like this incredible TV show that's shot from 100 different point of views, which can be really fun and also really overwhelming sometimes too.
So there can be some kind of like I'm gonna kind of tie this from a TTRPG. Like some people at the table can be kind of like toxic or rude, and you don't find that until like a couple sessions down when they finally like, okay, now I'm gonna be an asshole. How does that happen for an RP server? Do they get like people like, oh, he's missing or he's dead, or like how does the server play that for people who get banned?
Oh yes, that's a great question. So people who get banned in Grand Theft Auto are referred to as being sent to the Bahamas, or they're in vacation in the Bahamas. The word Bahamas usually means they're not coming back, or if somebody got a 3-day ban, you'd say, oh, they're in vacation, they're vacationing at the Bahamas for the next 3 days. And usually the reaction is like, oh, what did they do? You know? So that's usually how people will talk about it in game.
Nice. Okay, cool. I was just like, you're speaking so much about like how it's like this meeting people and like interacting them with 100% RPs, and I was just like, I've had to write a person out before, so
that's so funny.
It's very difficult. So like, is there different ways? No, just they're in Bahamas. Adios.
Yeah. The best is when they'll come back. Some people I've known have come back from a short ban, and they talk about like how great the Bahamas was, or even better, sometimes they'll talk about how much they hated the Bahamas and their vacation was horrible.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's and truly a whole other language evolves through those games, because there's so much sometimes you want to say to someone, even to help them out when someone's new to role play, even new to a server. So even if they're a role play veteran and they join a new server, they might not know how to do simple things because they're all so unique from one another. And so something as simple as getting in a car, what button do I press to get in the car? And so you might want to ask that, but you don't know how to quite ask it. And so people will ask, oh, I'm having trouble getting in the car. Is there? And some people will say, well, you just have to pull that handle there that has the E written on it. Or people will say a really popular one is flex your E muscle. And that just means click the E button and that'll help you get into the car.
Nice. I love the language that goes behind it.
Yeah,
because you're trying not to, you're being helpful and not breaking RP.
Right. Exactly. And people can be very clever. I've heard some really, really interesting ways of describing things that have blown my mind. I've been like, wow, they really thought about that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's truly incredible.
Have you ever, what's called, I think they call it fail RP or something like that? Has that ever happened to you? I mean, I know there's a lot of rules, so has that happened to you, and how did it feel weird? Did it feel like the server kind of felt off, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. And it's a tough thing because really on these servers, you want to hold the RP above everything else. And so even when you're in a scene where people are fail RPing and maybe even blatantly breaking rules, the important thing is to try to role play the scene out to the best of your ability, which can be difficult in some situations. It honestly can be. Even to use myself as an example, when I first started, I didn't know you can't just hit someone with your car. You're not supposed to do that.
No.
So they call it VDM, which stands for Vehicle Deathmatch. RDM, Random Deathmatch, is also against the rules, so you can't just go around shooting everyone that you see. And I had a situation where somebody was standing in front of my car and pointed a gun at me, and I was like, I'm in a car. So I just ran over him and got in trouble for that. That's when I learned that is against the rules. That was maybe a few weeks into role playing for me at the very beginning. And of course, the proper thing to do there would be to fear for your life and throw your hands up and beg, don't shoot me. What do you need? But I made a bad decision there. And the individual kind of role played it out to the best of their ability. They were injured, they were hurt, and then went onto the Discord and put a ticket out to let the staff know that I did that. and they were super kind. They actually didn't ban me, but they reached out and were like, do you know the VDM rule? I was like, no. They're like, you should read the rules again.
Look, all I'm
And
saying,
they were really
officer,
nice
is
about
if
it.
someone's pointing a fucking gun at me while I'm in my car,
Right.
I'm going to continue forward.
Right. Right, exactly. Yeah. And just to give a vibe of how different servers handle that stuff, they actually changed the VDM rule because of I tried to make a case for, this is what you do, right? And they sort of made a rule where you can't stand in front of the car if you're doing that, because you're technically in harm's way. Another server would probably not have adjusted rules and things like that. So it's interesting how they truly, the different admin and staff and ownership teams really handle stuff very different. But I would say to the fail RP, it's really try to role play it to the best you can. I've had people come up to me and ask me, so where are you from in real life? And it's like, oh, they're like, you do the New York accent really well. Where are you from in real life? And it's like, oh, this is a tough one to RP out, because that's a pretty direct question. And so I'll usually just answer as my character. I would say that's a strange way to put it, but I'm from Liberty City, which is what they call New York in Grand Theft Auto, because that's where my character's from. Like, you don't have to specify it's real life from New York.
Nice. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Do you have scenes that you plan out with other people in order to get together on the server? Is that something you ever do outside?
Absolutely. That's actually a good point, because scripted RP is something that's a bit of a mixed opinion topic with a lot of role players. Some people really like it and feel it enhances their storylines really intensely. Other people despise it and don't want to do. They want it all to be improv. I have definitely done multiple scripted scenes, and I found that they really do add an interesting jumping off point. If I were to join a server with a friend, I've done things where we're cousins, so we came here from New York together. So it can be as simple as that, just a very light scripted piece of relationship that we had. I've had where we went to school together. I've even had where we may have known each other as children, and I didn't know you moved to Los Santos, which is the where GTA takes place. And so if we bump into each other, we'll act shocked that we're both in Los Santos. Like, what are you doing here? Did you move here? Like, and kind of have it that way, all the way up to full-on scripted scenes where someone has asked me. I actually forgot this character when you had asked the question, but I actually did have another character who was an elderly guy, and someone had asked me, "Can you make a character who's going to kidnap my character at her wedding?" So she's gonna get married. That's a huge. People in GTA for some reason love to screw with weddings. They love to make weddings as traumatic as possible for everyone attending. And they said, "Can you make a character? He's gonna come in and he's gonna be sort of this out of town mobster." Because they know I did kind of the Italian New Yorkie voice, and so could you change it up a bit, make it sound elderly, bring him in, and he's gonna act like he's taking her to New York because of some storyline she had come up with. And we role played that out kind of to a script, but then the fallout and everything that followed after would be all improvised, how people responded to it and things like that. My personal opinion is I feel like it really can enhance roleplay when done correctly, especially when all parties involved are aware of what's happening and can kind of be a part of it consensually. Because I'm of the opinion, and some people don't agree with this, that consent is very important in roleplay. You can do stuff with people's avatars and characters that is uncomfortable for them and things like that, especially when it comes to like violence or kidnapping and things like that. There are certain times where it's obviously very appropriate to do it impromptu when people are in the gang life or doing things that they know they're entering that roleplay sphere. But things with people who are in different positions, I've always been of the mindset to kind of check in with the actor, I guess, behind the screen. And Discord is a great tool for that, because we all have to be on a Discord server to get access to the servers. And so you can very easily look someone up and say, "Hey, is this okay? Is this comfortable for you? Don't want to make you uncomfortable." I have seen situations that got really uncomfortable because there wasn't consent behind the actions. Some servers don't allow it. I sort of prefer servers that don't allow it, but like torture RP, not a huge fan. Some people love to do grindhousey movie type stuff. Not a huge fan of doing that without the actor's consent.
Right.
That feels
Yeah.
absolutely like something, because you're already taking it one step from, like, it is a Second Life kind of situation, and like,
Yeah.
do I really want to torture you in the Second Life? Cool. If
Right.
I do, yeah, consent, man, absolutely, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So important. So important.
Yeah. Yep. And so that's how I always felt. And you can always hit someone up, hey, I have this Reservoir Dogs kind of style thing in my mind that I think would be really like drama-esque for us to do, and here's what I'm thinking. And some people will be like, yeah, I love that idea for a scene. That's a really cool idea. And some people will be like, I've been through some stuff in my life. I'm not so excited to do that. And that's cool too.
Nice. Awesome. So when on this Discord server, you're able to kind of like, their profiles, like they have their name up, or when they change it and everything.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people will change their nickname on the server to include their character name somewhere in there. So some people, mine a lot of times would be a TinyHorse line, and then my character's name is Tiny Tony. That way, I used to play with a buddy who called me Tiny all the time because that was my, a Tiny Horse was my name in all the games we played together. And so I figured if I make my character Tiny Tony, he'll never get in trouble for using my real name by mistake. If he calls me Tiny, totally fine. He's technically still saying my character's name. So that was kind of my name on a lot of the Discords. Tiny Horse, Tiny Tony, and then people know they want to check in with me. I'm always, there.
Gotcha. So do you see like influx of individuals that come in because they see certain streams, or they see your stream like, oh, I want to get into RP? Like, do you see that as like a positive, a negative? Does it come pros and cons?
Yeah. At my core, I love seeing people discover and find a love for RP in any way. And so when they see it on streams and stuff, I think that's such a cool thing, because I think that is a huge factor to why people stream it, to get it out there and have people learn that this style of gaming that I found so freeing from the style of gaming I was doing before exists. Because I think it's something a lot of people need in their gaming and don't realize it. A break from shooters and defeat screens and the sort of sweating as you're trying as hard as you can to kind of grind points or ranks in games. There is a major difference when large streamers start to play on a server. The server I'm on now typically has a queue to get in, so you have to wait in line to actually log in. The server holds 250 people, and the line is usually about 130 people. So you wait online for a while. Sometimes it can be 7 to 9 hours, and certain people are given priority over others based on their role play. Ideally, their role play. Sometimes Twitch numbers help.
The greasing of the palms.
Well. Yeah, exactly. And then when we saw major streamers like, I think the most recent that people who know GTRP will probably recognize is when XQC came onto the NoPixel server. The queue jumped to about 1,200 people, which was incredible. So you're not getting in for days.
Damn.
And that was a really interesting thing, because it does bring up the question, are people here to role play, or are people here to stream snipe, get on his stream or hassle him or bother him in some way? And that, of course, isn't great. You do have to do an application, but some people are really good at flubbing those and getting through them. And so, people with a genuine interest, I'm always happy when they discover it through a stream. I know that's a big part of why I stream it. I think it's amazing when somebody watches my stream and decides for the first time, I'm going to try this. I'm going to actually make a character, and I've been thinking of this character I think would be cool. And it's always fun for me when a viewer checks in with me about that stuff. They'll message me and say, do you think this is a good character? Do you think this is cool? I'm thinking about doing it. And it's like, wow, yeah, go for it. Yeah, enjoy it. I'll hop into the world and see what it's like. So I love that part of it. I really do.
Nice. What are some, like, if you give them like 5 like kind of guiding tips, what would you give to a new player?
Sure.
Or 3, I don't care. Make sure, I don't want to give you too much stress.
No. Absolutely. I would say number one for me is to always respect people's role play. As silly as sometimes it might be, or as serious as it might be, respecting what somebody has kind of envisioned for their character and what they're trying to bring to the table with streaming. If somebody's streaming as or playing a character who wears a cat mask and a bodysuit and thinks they're a cat, go with it. It could be fun. You don't have to, your role play doesn't always have to be reminding them you're not a cat. You're a person, that can be fun, but also going with it can be really, really fun too. And just seeing where it leads them, because they probably made that character because they have some kind of intention or thought process. And sometimes seeing where that thought process goes is the whole fun of it. Which sort of is probably my second tip as well, is the super cliche improv trope of yes end. It changed my whole role play. I remember when I was first getting into role play, I read an improv book, and it was the first time I ever heard that phrase, which was really funny because now I feel like I hear it all the time. But I realized, that really is true. There are maybe times I say no when I really should be saying, like, okay, look, what can I add to what this person just presented me with? And then we can kind of bounce things off each other and land in a place that I never would have gotten to on my own. And so kind of accepting situations as they arrive, and accepting where the role play is naturally starting to go, can be a really fun experience within your comfort zone, of course. But I think that it can be really, really fun. Sort of like going back to the cat person, sort of yes ending them, maybe go to the store and buy them like a cat toy and see what the hell happens when you give it to them, or a bowl of yarn at the store or something, and see what happens.
I just have this idea of like, this cat person's like, all right, how long do they think I'm just a cat, but instead I'm a person pretending to be a cat as I'm RPing.
right. It's anything can happen. Absolutely anything. You will totally find a cat person if you play RP long enough. I guarantee it. Eventually it'll be there. I would say another is like not to limit yourself just because something might not exist dev work wise. So that ball of yarn I mentioned might not be available at the store. It totally doesn't stop you from going to the store and pretending to buy a ball of yarn. Because people will roll with it. People will accept that you bought that ball of yarn and you have it. And when you, there are ways to create kind of text that comes up sort of on your character's chest for just a moment, and then it'll disappear. You could hands you the ball of yarn, and they will type it back, grabs the ball of yarn and starts playing with it, or whatever it is. They'll do the same thing back, and then you're sort of like doing something the devs didn't even think was going to happen because they didn't put it in. and some of the funniest RP situations can come out of that. People just being so creative that it goes beyond the limits of the mods and the things that are on the server, and just becomes its totally own wacky thing. I've seen it also used in drama scenes, sort of limited to the way the characters may look. And so people will do that text prompt to say like, stares you down, or things like that. And it's like, okay, all right, so I'm getting the emotion that this person wants me to roll with here. And so I'd say not just limiting yourself to the things that are readily available, but really like opening yourself up. Because then you realize the sky's the limit. Anything could happen. I would say another one, I had another one in mind too, and now it's sort of faded out. I think some are kind of more, this might be more of a gimme, but I think, really respecting server rules. Most server rules exist because somebody broke them at some point. So even when there's weird ones, it's usually because they had a situation. It's sort of like when you see a weird sign like no ducks allowed in the grocery store, and it's like, why would you need to post that? And it's like, because it happened.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of the vibe with those servers. And a lot of times staff will notice the respect of the rules and really, really appreciate it. It's the best way I think it noticed by other role players and also servers. Yeah, and I would say be creative and have fun. That's really what it's all about.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
This has turned into a role-playing talk to a self-help guide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's so true.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, like, what being creative, keeping an open mind really helps individuals grow and to accept other things, especially like, well, in role playing you have to like, okay, I have to think of how they're working and how they react, and you know, this back and forth. And in real life you have to like, maybe the reason they're coming at me like this is because something happened in their real life, you know, like in their day to day that you just don't know.
Absolutely.
So being more courteous to them, would it benefit you in the long run?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think something that is commonly said amongst role players is we do this to escape all of the things out there in the real world. You know, it's why you see a lot of servers have rules, no COVID RP on here. Don't role play your character as COVID. Don't pass away from it. There's a lot of people dealing with that in the real world, and it doesn't need to be on a place where people are going to kind of escape from all that stuff. And it's also why they don't have children or pregnancy RP on any server I've ever seen, because it just can get to a place where you're bringing those things there. And I think truly at the heart of it is that this kind of escapism, and trying to make that in a healthy way, this ability to kind of relax, step into totally different shoes, and just do what feels right for you kind of in that moment. So that's what I've always thought. I would say my last rule, which I think is, to me, the most important because of what I actually said at the top of the show about why I got into RP from the competitive world. And it's such a hard transition for a lot of people because of the way I feel like our brains have become wired around gaming, is to let go of the win-loss mentality. That can be very hard. I've found it hard. Even years in, I can find it hard. Taking a major loss in roleplay can be not fun, but it can also be really rewarding with the roleplay that comes out of it. There can be roleplay that comes out of it that is so character developing and so deep, and it pushes storylines in a way that can be so enriching to everyone involved, that I think getting away from a win-loss kind of mentality really just expands the whole world to you. Letting people rob you, letting yourself be taken hostage because someone wants to rob a bank and wants to negotiate with you, with the police, you know? It doesn't always have to be like an argumentative, like tense thing. It can kind of be like, let me roll with this. My guy's scared. He's going to go with these guys. Oh, they're robbing a bank. You know, now you get to be a part of that in this kind of interesting role in it. And so, and even with the gang RP, which I think becomes the most contentious, if you won every single time, there just would be no story. And for other people to experience a win, sometimes you have to lose. For you to experience a win, sometimes other people have to lose. And understanding that ecosystem can really, really make it a lot more fun. And it's role play. Who cares if you lose? There is no winning or losing.
Right.
It's all just storyline. And so, you know, in all the movies and the shows that people like, if the good guy just did nothing but win, there would be no movie or show, you know? Those moments can be the struggle that your character overcomes.
Exactly. That's why having rolling fails and rolling with it is so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I'm so curious about how different tabletop is from like kind of what I've been describing. It's got to be so different.
You know, we'll definitely have you back after you experienced it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. That would be so cool.
And then you can listen to this like, wow, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you, but I bet it's a similar feeling of like you seeing other RPers like, hey, I'm gonna start this. Here's my character. Like, I'm guessing this is the same feeling as you have for them.
Yeah, truly. The closest I've come is there's a group of people on my GTA server who call themselves the Guild, and they own the comic book shop, and they play Dungeons and Dragons and LARP, and that's their whole character base. So they play Dungeons and Dragons in GTA. So like game within a game kind of stuff.
Hell yeah.
And there's a way to roll dice in the game, and so they have dice that are all the different increments, like the 20 sided and all of it.
I have found my people.
Yeah, they are the funniest people I have ever met. The LARPers too absolutely kill me. I work with a guy on the server. I work at a pizzeria, and one of my coworkers talks to me all day about how he's a paladin, and is constantly
That's me in real life.
It's so great. I love it so much. He sends my characters pictures of dragons dead behind him, photoshopped. And the guy who plays him is a genius. He's just such a great role player and can just create these incredible moments. And it's just so funny to see them. They're so funny. But I'm excited to experience it for myself.
Oh my goodness.
Hell yeah.
How is the experience? Do you talk to these people outside of GTA? Do you build relationships and friendships outside? Are they just GTA friends and that's where they stay?
That's actually a really important aspect, because you do eventually become very curious. Who have I been talking with this whole time? And it's amazing that your mind just naturally connects this person with their character. They just are their character to you. And then when you talk to them outside, they might have a totally different voice, almost always have a totally different personality. And I've always found that so fascinating. And I can say, some of the best friends I've made have been through role play. We'll start talking outside of role play and become really close friends. And I think that's the goal, kind of almost like actors kind of at the craft table, like on breaks, sort of talking with each other and vibing outside can really enhance the role play in cool ways. So I have gotten to know some people outside, and it has been awesome. Absolutely awesome. The out of character stuff, there's of course also people who sometimes don't get along out of character. That exists on every server. It's no matter where you go, it exists. But I think role players have a good way of like reining that in and really being controlled with that. But I've met amazing people, absolutely amazing people through role play.
The internet bringing people together in weird ways since before you were born.
Truly. Yeah, really. It's so true.
Yeah, I met my first internet friend last month in real life. I hung out with him for 2 years and finally got to see his family and his kids, and I'm like, wow.
That's amazing.
I got to meet an
really
internet
fun.
friend at a race with her mom, and then I knew her through Instagram, and then now I've magically been integrated in their Facebooks, and like I just watch their life and we just support each other through the interwebs. It's wild.
That's so amazing. That's amazing. I love stuff like that because it's just so cool, and it's incredible what distances you'll connect with people. I remember in that sort of mafia that I was talking about, there were people from Australia and England and all over the United States and Canada, and it was just incredible to have this very, very diverse group of people from all over. We had a few from Japan as well. To just have this very, very diverse group of people all committed to the same thing and becoming so close, out in character, out of character, and getting to know each other. It's an incredible thing.
That's magic. The internet sometimes does magic.
Yeah.
It could be a horrible, rancid place, but sometimes, just sometimes, it can be magic.
It's absolutely true.
All right. We've hit our hour mark. Any last questions, Alex?
No, thank you, Eddie, for joining us. I really appreciate you enlightening us about a different aspect of role-playing and just human existence.
Of course, it was awesome. I really appreciate you guys for having me on. This is a great podcast. I really enjoyed it.
It's because you were on. It's because you were on. All right.
Eddie, anything you want to plug?
I'm a tiny horse on Twitch. So if you just look up a tiny horse, it's the little BoJack Horseman looking profile picture. Yeah, and I hope you enjoy it. If you're more curious about the type of roleplay I do, yeah, you can find me there.
It's very fun. You should definitely go check it out. Dear listener, I have watched more than I would ever admit out loud that I was just interested. It's very fun. Yes, 10 out of 10.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad you liked it.
I had to because I was interviewing you for something else too. We've hit the silly stage. I apologize. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us for another episode of Dungeons and Degrees. You can find us on all social medias at Dungeons N, the letter N, Degrees. Feel free to rate us 5 stars on whatever podcasting app you listen to us. Please share out our beautiful, wonderful, ever-growing podcast to every friend, enemy, opponent you have. If you have a community you are looking out to join, another D&D community, feel free to join us on Discord. If your help wants to be monetary, we also do have a Patreon still there, rocking and rolling. If you have it in your heart to give small businesses money, we would love to take it from you. We'll also give you other things in return, like extras, and you get to hear Adrian and Alex talk about other things. And be
the things that I cut out of the podcast.
All the things. It's a 20-hour loop of me singing at the end of every podcast. That's it.
That sounds like a deal.
One day, our last podcast, I'm going to get that perfectly, and then that'll be it. We'll be done.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening. My name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
And I'm Eddie. Thanks for having me.
Go have some fun.